Hello and welcome to P&K. Okay, I'm unstuck. Now welcome to P&K Q&A for December 27th. While we're waiting for Krow to join us, I'm going to recite the prayer for the world that I did a few times ago. Since he doesn't like long prayers, I'm just going to do that while we invite him here. Okay, approve Krow. Stand by. Okay, Heavenly Father, I pray for the village councils and mayors of the villages in my rural municipality. May they make decisions that benefit the people of the villages in my rural municipality. I pray for the council and the reeve of my rural municipality. May they make decisions that benefit the people of my rural municipality. I pray for the mayor and the city council of the capital of my province. May they make decisions that benefit the people of that city. I pray for the MLAs and the premier of my province. May they make decisions that benefit the people of my province. I pray for the MPs and the Prime Minister of Canada. May they make decisions that benefit the people of Canada. And I pray also for all of the people of Canada. May they have the courage to stand up for what is right. I pray for the Congress, Supreme Court, and President of the United States. May they make decisions that benefit the people of the United States. I pray for all of the people of the United States. May they have the courage to stand up for what is right. And I pray for the leaders of all of the countries of the world. May they make decisions that benefit the people of their countries and benefit the world as a whole. And finally, Father, I pray for all of the people of the world. May they have the courage to stand up for what is right. Amen. Amy's watching. Hi, Amy. Welcome. And welcome, Krow.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, I think. Can you hear me?
And I can hear you.
I can, yes. Okay, awesome.
So how's everybody feeling today? I wonder. Yeah? It's been
pretty good, actually. Yeah. He says, hello, Amy.
Hello, Amy.
You got a friend of mine watching.
Hello,
Amy's
Amy.
Here, so if you want to say hi to Amy. She sent a like, I think. Someone did. Anyway, so yeah. Okay, 2020. And don't mind me if I look over to the side. I've got a little notebook here for the show. So on each day of the show, I have a page I write down notes and stuff. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so you did your prayer. And I'll do the Father's prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. So that should get us in the spirit of things.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and Amy wishes us a Merry Christmas. So
and a Merry Christmas to Amy and everybody else out there. I know I sent out quite a few texts on Christmas morning, just wishing everybody individually a Merry Christmas, which is something that I always try to do. I used to be in the habit when I lived in New Brunswick of just going around and randomly visiting people on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, or Boxing Day, just depending on how I knew their schedule was. And I knew all of my friends pretty good, and I knew what days. Usually the people with kids enjoyed having adult company on Christmas afternoon. After playing with the kids all morning, it's just like, oh, thank God, an adult to talk to.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, it's been a pretty calm week. Energetically wise, I would say it's been like super calm before the storm. I I don't know, there's a few times
Okay.
that I think I was stressed and went into prayer with probably more colorful metaphors than one should probably address to their Lord. But what the hell? I'm only human, so what can you do, right? I mean, can't get any worse than this. uh, so, yeah, but then after sitting down thinking about it, I realized that, you know what? I should know better because, I mean, I I think that through our talks and reading the Urantia book, we've gotten to understand our creator's personality a little bit, not quite a bit. And I thought to myself, what the hell are you up to, Michael? It's like this planet is on the cusp. I mean, before it was always just localized to a certain part of the planet, but right now it's planet wide. I mean, you've got people, waving American flags in Hong Kong. You got people waving American flags in Thailand. You got people waving American flags in Burma, Cambodia, Philippines, Vietnam, North and South Korea, if you can believe that shit. We've got American flags waving in Pakistan, not as many as you would like to see. There's American flags waving in southern India. There's a few, not so much in Europe. There's a few countries like Spain, Portugal. I think they're waving American flags in Greece. I know that they're doing big marches in Greece. Those they're not happy at all. Yeah, yeah. And
Oh, really?
what else? Not there is some American flag waving down in South America, but not as much as you would think. But there's history there, so yeah, especially with the people on the ground.
And we got
Hey, Jerry.
Jerry watching. Hi,
And
Jerry. How you doing? Welcome.
so there's stuff like that going on all over the world. This has never happened before. This is as novel as it gets. Uh, but there are similarities to or other things that have taken place in history. And
That's good. I was just saying, that American flags in, because I was going to say some American flags in Europe, not so many. I was going to say maybe not quite as many as in Berlin after the end of World War II, for instance. Or I don't know if they had access to American flags at that point or not, but as many as might have been waved in Berlin after the end of World War II. Although I just wonder what you thought of that. That would have been a thing, or what? Or I mean, there was some other stuff that kind of happened there.
I think if they had dollar stores back then, there would have been a ton of American flags.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob.
Oh, hey, Bob's watching. Hi, Bob. And we got a ton of people watching here. Well, it says the eye symbol says one, so I don't know if it's like they come on for a minute and go away or what exactly. But anyway, we've had a bunch of people take a look at the video.
We appreciate everybody.
Anyway, so that's awesome. And I was going to ask you, what was your personally, how did you personally feel the energy on Christmas Day to be? I'll tell you how I felt it was.
No, but you go ahead.
I asked you that before. Okay, so it was different, very subtly different, but I don't know what, a little finer, a little smoother. Not exactly the same as on the solstice. That was really something. I felt really great. Like I almost couldn't get upset if I tried to. On Christmas and the days after the solstice, it was a little different. I kind of started to be a little bit of a shorter fuse, but I think the thing to do with that was they sent us a pattern like, okay, here's a possibility, and then I guess we get to decide whether and to what degree to live up to that. I know that I've been able to recover from negative stuff faster since the 21st. It's not that I don't get upset. I get less upset and upset over maybe slightly different stuff, and I recover. I recover quicker. I've been noticing that a lot. Hey Neil, how you doing? He says, "What up?" Okay, but yeah, no, definitely a different energy on the 21st, and since the 21st, and Christmas Day especially,
Uh,
that was kind of
what
cool.
I felt on the solstice, uh, leading up to the conjunction, I was actually feeling physically ill, and and
Okay. Oh, and hang on a second, Crow. I'm seeing about half your.
oh,
Oh, there you go.
okay,
Okay, now I'm seeing your whole
leaning over
face.
too far.
Now I'm seeing you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was seeing you
yeah.
like that.
Oh, well, we don't
I
want
was
to do
seeing one eye.
that. um, so let me
There
just
we go.
turn. There we go. Um, yeah, so I was feeling physically ill, like I'd say maybe a minor detox of energy leading up to the
Hmm.
conjunction,
Yeah.
which I sort of found interesting. And I had my normal, like the normal foods I always have, so it wasn't anything new uh, introduced to my system. But yeah, it's I just felt like I was like I wanted to throw up, but didn't, or didn't want to and couldn't. So I just, it was just kind of like just right there in the back of the
Yeah.
throat the whole time, just this weird sick feeling. And then about maybe 20 minutes before the conjunction,
Okay.
it just disappeared completely. And I had some time before the conjunction uh, to kind of sit and relax, because it just so happened it was in the middle of lunch break. So I took off for lunch about maybe 10,
Hmm.
15 minutes early so that I could have a moment to, throw something in my gut and then just sit and wait. And even then, trying to eat something was, I almost wanted to reject it. But uh, to understand my lifestyle, I eat on a schedule, regardless of whether I'm hungry or not. And the reason why I do that is because if I didn't do it, it would be 2 or 3 hours later while I'm in the middle of some project or, somewhere's out in the middle of nowhere's. And then all of a sudden, I'm hungry and I'm just crippling myself because of that hunger. And doing the stuff that I'm doing,
Yeah.
it's dangerous work. And I don't want to be distracted by hunger. I learned that that's a bad idea. I learned that years ago. That you'd never, when you're trying to do something
Yeah.
technical, requires a lot of brain power. Yeah, being distracted by hunger. Yeah, mistakes happened, and I don't like being the one that looks like an idiot.
I carry a little tub of trail mix with me. Sometimes two of them, depending on what I'm doing and how long the day is going to be. So between breakfast and lunch, I'll eat some or part or some or all of one of those, and then in the middle of the afternoon, because then I kind of have these.
Yeah.
I have these dips and peaks and stuff, and I need to snack on something.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was on.
Times throughout the day.
Yeah, I used to do that when my job was more physical than what it is. But, nowadays I like to keep track of what goes in and what gets burnt. So I don't like to overfill the gas tank.
Okay.
And yeah. So anyways, we get then coming into Christmas after maybe a few days, like maybe before Christmas, Christmas Eve. The energy was a little bit disturbing, but then woke up Christmas morning and it was peaceful. It was very peaceful, very calm, and the energy has been calm ever since. I think.
Yeah, I was going to just say something. I forget which part of what it's talking about with it's the creation of one of the Michael sons or one of the something or other. It takes 3 days from the initiation to the completion. So I was thinking that the solstice was, not specifically for the creation of a being or anything, but putting in that 3 day time period. The 21st was, whatever, maybe the time of switching from one thing to another or bringing another layer on board or something. And then the 22nd, 23rd, 24th were the 3 days, and then Christmas morning was the first full day of the new kind of harmonic or whatever it is you want to call it. Is
No, you're on to you're on to something there. It's because everything down here, it's all a slave to time. Everything is about time down here. This is because well, I mean, this is where God grows souls. So we're young souls. We don't know how to use the energy, so everything has to take time. It's like growing plants. It's like you don't flood them with water. You give them a little bit every day, and then and eventually they'll break up for the soil. I mean, everything takes time. I told a few people that try to be outside at 12:22 to not so much to witness the conjunction, but just to be outside of a structure, and so that the energy can just rain down on you without the interference of asphalt tiles on the roof, plywood, insulation, copper wire, nails, steel plates, drywall. You got all those layers between you and the sky. I just told you, let's just go outside, just 5 minutes, and just stand there.
Okay. I'm gonna interrupt you for a second, Krow, because Neil's got a couple of questions here, and normally I'd wait a little bit for a lull, but my scroll, there's like two lines or two questions worth, two notifications worth on here before they kind of start fading out. So Neil's first question is, do you believe that this transition won't take effect if enough people don't focus on correct focal points? And I think we've covered some of this in our previous talk, and I think the page that Krow and I are on is the decision was made on a planetary scale at a certain point, and we're kind of working out the details from this point forward. Is that kind of what your take on it is?
No, I understand his question, and thank you for the question. It's a good one.
Yeah.
No, the thing is that,
okay.
And we talked about this before, was the energy comes to us, but what happens with that energy once it comes into our possession is wholly up to us. So we can either be productive with the gifts that are given to us, or we can be destructive with the gifts that are given to us. So this is why humanity has to be at certain points. It's like, it's like when you're constructing or building something. So we had to get to a certain point mentally and spiritually in order to, be able to utilize this energy properly. So the energy has come to us at the right time, or we have been brought to the right time to receive this energy. I think it's the latter.
We had been raised, or we had kind of elevated ourselves, or we had developed to the point where we were compatible with where it was, we were at a point where the energy could be offered to us, and some or most of us would be able to understand it, accept it, utilize that sort of thing. So it's yeah, I guess there's a whole bunch of, how do I want to say it? It's like getting to a certain level, and then you're offered a certain item, or a certain, whatever kind of. It's a two-part answer, I guess, Neil. It's not.
You could go on about this for
Sorry,
another
I
10
need to kind of
minutes
slow down, really, but
because
yeah.
it's everything. It's all related, and it has everything to do with our growth. It's like, and also what it really does come down to is, what does the majority of the people do with this energy will determine how this energy will function in the future. Will it function the way that it was intended?
Okay, say that again, Krow. There was you broke up just a little bit before you said
Okay.
about how this energy will function in the future.
So the energy for
kind of
functioning in the future is determined in the present. And so how we decide to utilize this energy will now will determine whether or not it will work the way that it was intended in the future, or is it going to be corrupted somehow? And the happy answer is that the energy isn't being corrupted, because there's too many people that have accepted the gift joyously. They've, I mean, all eyes were on this conjunction. Everybody was excited. There was a lot of positive energy associated with this conjunction. Everybody was calling it the Star of Bethlehem. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter, because it's all about the morphogenic fields. If people believed that it was the Star of Bethlehem and they were like, yo, and they prayed and they were thankful and everything like that, guess what? All of that is being mixed in with the new energy that came on the conjunction. And so that puts it into the morphogenic field. I said this before, whoever is behind the plan has a deep, deep understanding of morphogenic fields, like crazy deep. If you looked at the experiments that mankind did in order to prove morphogenic fields, and then the things that happen to try to manipulate them, it's like, it's like a kid trying to figure out how a gasoline engine functions. It's just like, you're only looking at the outside, but once you have more knowledge, you understand that all the magic is happening inside that engine, not on the outside of it. And so the morphogenic, it has already integrated into the morphogenic field quite successfully and in a very short period of time because of the numbers involved on the planet. It only takes a seventh of the population to turn everything around. That was an equation that monks came up with back in the early 90s when they were doing like studying the energies and the new energies coming in compared to the old. That's a whole other topic. What was his other second question?
So it's a kind of an interactive second comment, and then he asked a follow-up question about the energy, which I think we may have answered. If not, we can address it. He had a comment that said, "Time, the not so great construct," and we may differ on some of that. Sometime we'll have to have maybe a private conversation with you and me and Neil sometime. But anyway, so if you could briefly speak to that, I guess, and see what you think of it.
Well, in the Urantia book, when Jesus spoke with his thought adjuster, when he sent his thought adjuster away to go do things, or well, he did send him away to go do things. Now, it was a warning when the thought adjuster gave Jesus. And what it was is that when it came to time, the thought adjuster made it very clear to Jesus that only Jesus was subjugated to the time. The thought adjuster was not. And he warned Jesus to be careful, because if you're not putting some future date on the memo, the thought adjuster could accidentally execute it immediately. And then that would look very much like a miracle. And so, yeah, you had to schedule it. Yeah. And so that's the dilemma that Jesus was in for his whole time that he was here on earth after his awakening, after the baptism, is that he had to constantly be aware.
Because I think there were one or two times when he not forgot exactly, but he maybe didn't take everything into account, and a couple of things happened that were considered miracles
and my favorite story
simply because some of it happened outside
is
of time.
When the water to wine story. Now, in the Urantia book, okay, we're told about the water to wine story in the New Testament, but in the Urantia book, it talks a little bit about what was actually happening with Jesus personally behind the scene. And the author was like trying to explain that this is, this can happen. So at the wedding, this is where Jesus, this is his first trip that him and his apostles took together, okay? And they were all excited, the apostles, because they were like, Jesus is going to announce, that, he's Son of Man or something, or he's the King of Kings, whatever, right? They were excited because they thought this was going to be it. Probably a reasonable assumption, but they didn't know Jesus. Not yet, anyways. They get to know him later and understand why. But at this point, they were just excited to be chosen by what's ostensibly the most holy man they have ever met in their lives. And so they were excited, and and so was Mary, because Mary, she's been living with the secret for a long, long time. The only people that know that Jesus is a child of destiny at this point are his brothers and sisters and his mother, and John and his parents. So it's a tight family secret. And so Mary's been waiting like forever for Jesus to step up. And you got to remember, by this time, he's like in his 30s. And so Mary's like, thinking, what the fuck, right? So when after talking with Jesus's disciples that were disciples, eventually they became his apostles. Then she was like, oh really, because they were telling her some things that Jesus had told them. And so she got excited and she wanted something to show people that, her son was someone special, typical proud mother shit. That, all mothers want for their children. And so, um, so Jesus is out in the back garden. He knows what's going on. He's just like, oh dear God. And the disciples came to him a few times. He's like, no, just chill. Don't be bothering with that. And so, but then his mother comes out and she's like, come on, you got to do something. And she's like, do something, turn the water to wine or something. Okay. But leading up to that one little statement, she was like really nagging the shit out of him. And I'm sure in that moment when she said, just turn the water to wine or something, Jesus was like, fuck. And just like, yeah, water to wine, whatever. And then fucking boom, it happened. And then of course he knew it happened right in that moment, and all he could think to say was, go tell him to go crack the water jugs. And and it was in a moment of frustration that he let his guard down. And that taught him a valuable lesson that had stayed with him for the rest of his ministry. That, to just, don't let your human emotions get the best of you, I guess. But I found that like really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the technical part of what happened there behind the scenes was all the cosmic power directors and the this and that whatever were they basically took grapes. They did the whole physical process outside of time and then stuck the product
Yeah.
into, replaced the water, did whatever it was. No magic, nothing like that. Just kind of quantum physics out of time. They did the thing in a pocket universe where there was no time and came to this time and just in what would seem to us like the snap of a fingers, they stuck wine in these things. There was nothing, magical about it. And we got a couple of other watches. I'll just I can say hi. I'll just if I wave, that's me waving at a new watch. So anyway, that's the thing. The Urantia book explaining the water to wine
and that is
miracle
absolutely
using
correct.
Quantum physics.
Yeah, and that's correct. It took place outside of time, then they brought it into time. It still took the same amount of time to make the wine, except they just did it, like you said, in a pocket universe, let that time expire, and then plunk it down back into our time. Go watch some Doctor Who episodes. That shit's actually pretty accurate on how time functions and how we're beginning to understand how time functions. And it's a function of gravity and magnetism.
Okay.
It is gravity, magnetism, time. Those are the three pillars of our reality right there. And everything else comes from that.
Okay. Okay. Now let's we'll just I hope we've addressed Neil's last question here, but so he said, my understanding is that the major shift is Earth frequency. This frequency stays in pause until the greater portion are ready. So I guess my response to that is it's kind of an interactive type of thing. The way I would describe it is if you're in a video game, the weapons, tools, etc., that you're offered in a specific level are going to be kind of germane to the level you're at. You're not going to be given like the super duper sword in like level 2 or something as you level up, like level 2, 3, 4, 5 or something. Then maybe you'll have, if you need to do a certain task, then you'll have access to a certain tool, and then you get to figure out how to use the tool. That's how I would answer that question. It's kind of, there's a whole bunch of different variables. it's at least multivariable. There's the variable of our development, and then we get offered the things at when we're up to a development level.
Actually,
So that it's more likely, I guess, that it would be relevant for us to be getting that
that's
energy. I don't know.
actually.
Anyway, so yeah, okay. Neil says he's got to go, but all right,
Oh,
take care. Thank you for
Merry
joining us. He
Christmas.
says Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
No, you're
to you
talking
too.
about the
Thank you.
energy, like us being at a certain level.
Thanks for hanging out.
You had it backwards. It's not that we get that we make it to a certain level and we are given this gifts. We are brought to these levels. The gifts are already coming in, because you got to remember, all of this stuff is connected to the greater universe. So, I mean, there's a time schedule, like all the galaxies are rotating and all the planets are rotating a certain way in the galaxy. And as they move, there's certain energies that they're moving through. And the most recent piece of energy that is coming our way were these crazy X-rays that came from the center of our galaxy. We don't know what they're going to do, but I'm sure that we'll figure that out in about 1,000 years. But so everything is moving into the energy. So we have to be brought to a certain level as we move into these energies. And we have to be brought into these levels at a certain time, within a certain time frame. Because if we are brought into them too soon, then we would lose patience and we would falter. If we're brought into if we are brought to that place too late, then we will not get the full effect of those energies, and those energies will get corrupted as it goes forward in time, and we may not make it past the next epoch because the energies will be so corrupted by that time.
Okay.
Essentially,
so
yeah.
Playing Guitar Hero here. You know how that game works? Whatever the things come along, and then you're supposed to hit the notes on your guitar, and it happens at different speeds, and there's different complexities and stuff. Or
imagine
Dance Revolution or whatever, some kind of a thing like that, where you get this stuff, and then you have to, because what is it? It's almost like that, like a Tetris or because let's see, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. Michael created the universe, so he knows kind of what all's out there, and he knows it's turning around, and he knows certain things have to happen in certain times, and he has skills that usually he's going to be able to do it with some degree of success, but he has to kind of do the moves or push the buttons.
Well, and also Michael has to experience all of these things as well. It's a lot of it is about experience too.
Okay.
It's God made a really big playground, and he's the only rule is that no assholes are allowed. And so that's what Michael has created. It's all rotating and moving, and energies are going this way, energies are going that way. There's asteroids moving about. Everything has to be synchronized, and we have to be synchronized along with it. So we have been brought here, and to be in this moment. And when I look back in time at the schedule that has been involved, it's been a tight schedule. It's been a really tight schedule, because look at when the atomic bomb was invented and what that did to our society. You see, people can the atomic bomb, what they did with it was horrific. But then when you see what has happened and what could have happened and what should have happened, then, we actually got off pretty easy. Because, without the atomic bomb, we would have perpetuated war continuously. Uh, the atomic bomb stopped war and brought war under control, essentially. I mean, yeah, they were still fighting, but these were like little battles. These were nothing compared to what World War II was.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like millions of people being killed. I mean, look at the numbers involved in World War II, the amount of people that died. Can you imagine without the atomic bomb, there would have been another crazy war like that easily because there would have been no deterrent for anybody. It would, take some boats and start shooting at each other and, get some rockets going and shit like that. Because, you're blowing up, you're blowing up a few thousand people at a time. So it doesn't seem like much in the moment. I know, as horrible as that might sound, but you got to, optics. Whereas when 322,000 people were killed in the blink of an eye, that made people like, holy shit, that actually had an effect on the ether, is what that did. That had a huge effect on the ether. And that forced us to pay attention and to change the way that we do things. And I'm looking at the situation that we have been in the last dozen years, and I think that if we do not make it through this time, there will be nuclear wars. And because people have forgotten how horrific a nuclear weapon really is. I mean, people really, really need to go look at, the footage of Hiroshima and what that one bomb did. It's all horrific, and people need to remember that. But I think that.
Yeah, it's video on the. Yeah, they flew. I think they flew a plane with a camera.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was all recorded. It was
it
was history in the making. They had to.
Filmed it. Yeah. You can see it on YouTube if you want to. So yeah, it's
So yeah, and now we're here in history that if we do not make it through this point in history, we're done. We're finished. There's going to be nothing left to our society in like 500 years. I mean, or less. Because if you see what they are trying to do, I mean, it's horrific. And you got to ask yourself, it's like, why? And, well, I mean, these people are stupid. What it is that they think that they only need 500 million people to run a planet. And sure, 500 million people is fine to run a planet if you have no intention of evolving technology. Then you'll just be stagnant for 1,000 years, and that's death. I mean, you want to have variety. We need billions of people for variety. Like I said, we're way behind schedule on everything. I mean, at this point in history, if we had developed normally along without any interference from the Luciferian rebellion, we would be, at this point in our history, we would be poised to leave our solar system and go and explore the rest of the galaxy. I truly believe that. In fact, I think that if things had went along 1,000 years ago, that would have been when we first stepped on our moon and on Mars. And then we would have spent the next 1,000 years traveling within our own solar system before we figured out
we would have been to the point where Arthur C. Clarke had us in
Mm.
2000, the book 2001, and 2010 they went to, and then, well, 2061 they had bases on
Yeah.
Jupiter's moons and stuff like that, things like that. So yeah, it's 100.
Yeah.
We need to be 100 years further ahead at least than where we are now, depending on what
Well,
science fiction universe you're in. I think Star Trek Enterprise, right? That's set in the 22nd century. I think they have their first long range ship that can go to other
I think what will end
star
up
systems.
happening now is that we will spend the next couple of 100 years, probably the next 500 years, exploring our own solar system and sending probes out into the galaxy. And
Yeah.
I think that would be
Mm-hmm.
that would be how this is all going to play out. And about 1,000 years from now, we will be ready to leave our little solar system, and maybe even less time than that, because we already the gift of truth has already been poured out onto this planet, and that is one of the criterias before a species can go out and explore their own galaxy, is that they need the spirit of truth. And the reason why they need the spirit of truth is because they need to readily be able to recognize Michael's spirit in the spirit fused beings that we are going to meet out there. See, we're father fused, but there's other beings that are spirit fused, and we may not see them as an intelligent, sovereign being, because we wouldn't have the spirit of truth to be able to see it, because we wouldn't recognize a spirit fused creature, because we wouldn't sense a thought adjuster in them. So we wouldn't think them intelligent. Kind of makes you wonder about dolphins and whales and stuff, eh? And I mean, they could be spirit fused, and we just don't recognize it because we don't have the spirit of truth in us. Well, at least not before. Now the spirit of truth is on the planet and it's working its way. I think it's and I think that it's doing a good job, because people are waking up. They're starting to see that their so-called leaders are not leaders at all. I mean, they've basically, it's becoming, if it's not totally transparent to you, I would argue that you're not paying attention. But our current leaders have sold us down the river, and they've sold us down the river hard. I mean, just take a look at how much money Canada sends out of the country, and take a look at the bill that Congress tried to push through. I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, 600 bucks, $600. I'd seen a video the other day where a buddy calculated in his state how much it costs daily to live. $165 a day is what he calculated. But him and his wife have to make a minimum in their business, which is closed down because of COVID, in order to meet all of their obligations. $165 a day minimum to meet all their financial obligations, and the government offered them 600. Wow. Can you imagine?
One issue, one bill, folks. If you want to lobby for, if you want to become activists for something,
Yeah,
try
I
that.
mean,
One
that is
issue,
just,
one bill. Then go save the whales or
yeah.
whatever. But one
I
issue,
think that,
one
well,
bill.
actually, I think all countries need to have a policy. It's, United States, Canada, Great Britain, all of them. of a one bill, one policy. And I don't see any reason why a bill should be more than 10 pages. If you can't fit everything in within 10 pages,
Right.
then then you're just making shit up. There needs to be a separate bill,
There
or
needs
you're
to be a
making shit
separate
up.
bill, probably. Yeah. They can take you, I don't know, how long should it take to, I mean, every bill is going to be different, but take like a few days or a week to, read it and vote on it and decide whether to pass it, and then we want to go on to the next one. They can
Well, here's
come
the
up with, multiple ones. If they want, if there's like 5 or 6 or 10 issues, they could publish 5 or 6 or 10 bills, and then they can be voted on individually or as a group, but they need to be
here's the thing. If you are
things.
working from a place of integrity and truthfulness, you'd be. I mean, everything that you are going to do can be quite succinct. It's like it doesn't take no drawn out. I mean, to me, it's like,
Yes.
I mean, if you start deviating from the truth, to me, it's like now you're just trying to sell me something. You're trying to sell me your truth. No, it's like no. Let's just stick with the facts. I want to hear the facts. And
The truth.
exactly. I mean, you ever notice that?
Lies.
Like when you're telling the truth, I mean, it's a very short paragraph, but when you're giving your opinion, holy crap, it's an essay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, most of the
Yes.
time when I'm talking, I'm trying to explain things. I'm trying to explain the truth in such a way that it's digestible and that it makes sense to people. I mean, I guess that's, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything, but I'm trying to explain things. There's a difference when you're trying to teach. It's like you can have the truth and you're teaching the truth, but sometimes in order for people to understand the truth, it takes, you got to teach. And so teaching is different. And what's the difference between teaching and selling? I'm not attached to whether or not you believe me. I personally, it doesn't matter to me. You can believe me or you cannot believe me. I guess I'm more worried about making an ass out of myself more than anything. And so teaching is different from selling in that regard. Although I have met professors in university that don't know the difference.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we got another watcher, Tippy Lee. Do you know
Tippy
who Tippy
Lee?
Lee is? Tippy Lee Don? Yeah.
I remember a dog being
sure
named. I remember a
Either someone
dog.
you know or some random watcher who found this on the YouTube. I've got it set to like public, anyone on or off, or not YouTube, Facebook. So it might be some random person who got on Facebook and saw that I was streaming and
You know what's really funny about
awesome
that?
if that's the case.
Is that I knew a dog named
Yeah.
Tippy Lee a long time ago in New Brunswick. Yeah. I mean, how messed up is that?
Really?
I think I might have been in my teens. I think I was in my teens when I met that dog.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, we started this conversation talking about what Michael's doing, and if people are feeling frustrated, a little scared. I know that I'm getting a little scared, but I gotta just constantly remind myself. Okay, like I said before, I think we've gotten to know our Creator pretty good, and what he seems to like to do is he likes to wait to the last possible moment when where there does not seem like there are any avenues out. And I think we're getting really close to that now, because, and that's the part that actually kind of frightens me a little bit. It's like all of the exits are being blocked for the Patriots. Michael is corralling the Patriots, and evil has been put on notice. But corralling them to a certain place,
Okay.
so that there's only going to be one choice. But the thing is that the whole world has to understand where they are at. When the Patriots get to this point, the rest of the world has to understand how they got there and why they are going to do what they are going to do. And so that's why all avenues of relief have to be pursued first, and then eventually there will be the ultimate avenue of relief. And we have already been told by Q that the military is the only way. And I think, most people, when they really sit down and they think honestly to themselves, they know now. The spirit of truth has done its work, and I think people now know and now understand that there is so much corruption in politics and in government that the military is the only way forward. And the Constitution has to be reset. This is why Trump is going to be the last president, and I have no doubt he may end up being the first president. Yeah. And this is where we're at, because when you look at what has been done to the Constitution. Okay, let's take the Second Amendment. That's the one about being able to bear arms, right? Shall not be infringed. It says right in the Constitution, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, there's tons of infringement in the United States, and depending on what state you live in. Some states, it's almost impossible to own a gun, especially if you live in an urban environment, and that is going directly against the Constitution. It's like, how can you misinterpret that? It says shall not be infringed, not by anybody, not by Congress, not by a state, but yet there it is. Now, I am sure that as a society, we can all agree that there are certain people that should not have guns. But I only agree to that when their mental state can be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to be unfit to own a weapon of such destruction. And also, if a individual has demonstrated their inability to cooperate within civil society, they probably shouldn't have a gun. And and I think I've said this before. I think that the average citizen, I think this should be a worldwide thing. Everybody should be allowed a certain caliber weapon as a personal weapon. And that caliber would be at a certain, let's say, I don't know, 9mm. 9mm weapon, and with a maximum of 12 rounds, maybe 13. Put one in the tube, and that is legal for everybody to own. And maybe a long rifle. you know, like, I don't know, pick a caliber that's reasonable. And these are the only weapons that you're allowed, that any citizen can have without a permit. Now, you want other weapons that are more powerful? I think that you should probably get a permit for that more powerful weapon and demonstrate your ability to handle that weapon in a responsible manner. And then fucking boom. So that would give all regular citizens uh, equal firearm protection across the board. Because if you're caught with a higher caliber weapon in your holster than what you're legally allowed to carry with a permit, then you know. But on average, everybody's going to have a 9mm and everybody's going to have 12 shots. Now you know where you stand in every room that you walk into. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because nothing screams, I think, I mean, back in the day, 100 years ago, people knew how to respect each other because there was really only one question on your mind. When, you got pissed off with a guy, could you get to your gun faster than him? And if you didn't think that you could get to your gun faster than the other guy, you bit your tongue and you showed a little bit of respect. And,
Yeah, there's a quote that my pro Second Amendment friend from Oklahoma says: "An armed society is
and
a
he is
polite
correct.
society." He likes to say.
He is absolutely correct. I mean, the reason why we have bullies is because they know they can get away with it. Yeah, I mean, who do bullies target? They certainly
Right.
don't target guys in their weight class. Hell no. They look for guys that are 3 times smaller than they are, and then they pick on them. But if that smaller guy had a gun and he knew how to use it better than that bully's going to think twice now, isn't he? But here's the kicker. Smaller guys are actually got a hell of a lot faster reflexes than the bigger guys. I mean, when you think about it, like when you look at all the gunslingers back in the day, I mean, a lot of them were under 6 feet tall, and they were fast. They were faster than a lot of people. And I know growing up with my cousins who were all bigger than me, but I was always faster than them. I had to be, actually. Yeah, unless I get my ass kicked. So where are we at now?
Let's see. We talked about the energy and the modern application of the Second Amendment. Oh, we were talking about Michael's plan and how he likes to wait to the last minute. It occurred to me to wonder or to think or that I would not be surprised if and I know the sort of the finalization of the electoral college thing is supposed to come around the January 6th, January 9th thing like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't know who was going to be inaugurated until like 11:55 on January 20th. Although that might be a bit late, but I wouldn't be surprised until yeah, whatever it is, the January 9th. Let's say January 9th. It may take until then
I
before
mean,
we
that
have
could be
some idea
messed
what's
up.
going on. I don't know.
That I mean, things that
But what's your 0 hour scenario, Crow? Let me ask you that. I mean, what's 0 hour for you? Like if we don't
middle of April.
find something out by when, we might want to
Middle
start
of
to
April.
worry or whatever. Pardon me?
Yeah, don't ask me why,
Oh, okay. So
but
after
I
January.
have a strong sense
Okay.
of the middle of April, and my son, he has the strong sense too, and he said it out loud, and I was just like, I've been feeling
Mm-hmm.
that too, but But I was just like, I really, really, really didn't want to think about that. I mean, can you imagine this shit dragging out till April?
Okay.
That would just be.
Actually, I can. Yeah, I don't want to, but something could happen to
And I was
delay
just
the.
like,
Yeah, because they said on NTD the military could rerun the election or something. We could have like a redo of the election, and it could take until April to
that,
get the results.
yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen, but I nothing would
that,
surprise me at this point. Nothing,
that seems like the
hardly
most
anything would
likely
surprise me.
scenario if this thing gets dragged out till April. That something's going to happen in January
Mm-hmm.
to where the military has to get involved. And I think you're right. They'll be looking at a revote. And the only question that remains is that is it going to be a revote nationwide or just in these 6 states? That and the military might just say, and if the military does pull the trigger, they might just say, "Fuck it." The whole country is voting again, and it'll be on. And this will be likely the most secure election you'll ever see in any century, and it will be like. I think it'll be one of those things where you'll be showing up at the polls and you will be proving that you're an American citizen, the guy behind the desk, and it'll all be military personnel, and they will hand you a ballot right there, and the ballot is going to have a barcode on it. You're going to do your pick, and there will be it'll get dropped into a box, and everything will be hand counted, and and if the ballots are scanned at all, they will be scanned only after they have been hand counted and witnessed. And it'll take probably a little bit longer than normal, but the whole country will be patient. They'd be willing to wait 48 hours to get an accurate result on an election. And I think that if that happens, we will witness the most transparent election this planet has ever seen. And that will be something else. So I think it'll be a combination of military, it'll be a military operation with civilian oversight, meaning citizens from the community will be allowed to oversee the counting of the ballots. They will be witnessing the soldiers counting. I think that'll be the scenario that'll play out. So we've got interesting times ahead, and and that scenario also gives more opportunity for the swamp to bury itself even more if it hasn't already. I mean, that latest bill, if that didn't wake up the population, I don't know what will. I mean, if you can still support these people after reading that 5,800 and whatever page monstrosity, then you're lost. You're just lost. That's all I can tell you. You're lost completely. I mean, when you see how much money they want to give to Americans, and you put that in a ratio to what's going out of the country, I mean, you should be pissed off. It's like, I think somebody calculated it out, like Americans are getting like 6% of the money that is in that bill. The rest of it, hidden out of the country.
Yeah, that's why Trump called for $2,000. He took one look at that thing and said it would cost far less for one bill giving every American $2,000 than that bill that gives them $600.
You know what the crazy part is? That even if he retroactively gave everybody $2,000, it would still be less than what that fucking bill is. I mean,
That's what I think. Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah. It'd be, I don't know. You should give them 10 grand to approach the the bill. It's like what, 2.3 billion or trillion. I don't know what it was, but it was far more than, yeah, because I calculated it out. Say 350 million Americans, and I don't know if it was citizens or just people that were on addresses living in America or whatever. But let's say there's 350 Americans, times 600. That's,
Yeah, it's like
$2
2.5
billion
or two
or
or
something.
something
It's
like that.
nothing.
It doesn't even make it to 3 billion.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. And if you were to pay out uh, to like 150 million Americans, $2,000 retroactive, the number comes out to like 5 trillion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's right in the ballpark of what they want to give away. It's like, why would you do this? I mean, considering,
Yeah, why wouldn't you just give every
yeah,
American
well, I mean, even if you, I
$5,000 or
mean,
whatever
yeah,
it is?
retroactive, and uh, businesses are being shut down, and they're they're basically going bankrupt. But meanwhile, big chain restaurants and big chain stores, they remain open. It's like, how does that make sense? Well, I mean, it only makes sense if you want to destroy middle class America.
Yeah, so chew on this. They tried to cancel Christmas,
Mhm.
but they didn't cancel the Christmas shopping. They had some of the most interesting, that the most interesting Christmas ads I've yet seen for, you know, commercial whatever. And then they say, oh, if you're not, basically you can only celebrate Christmas this year with whoever you're living with at the moment.
Yeah,
Don't go
as
visiting
if you
them
haven't
over
seen enough.
Christmas, but buy this
I,
stuff.
I mean, as if you haven't seen enough of that
Is
person.
is the
I mean, you can love your husband, you can love your wife, but
yeah.
it's like, you know, people need their alone time too. And I mean, can you imagine? Like, I mean, I know there's some women out there, like they're housewives, they're homemakers, and their husband staying home interrupts their whole routine that they've had since they've gotten married. So
Mm.
I can't even imagine. And men, I mean, men are used to working. Men are used to go. I mean, especially like hardworking men that are used to supporting their family, are used to making the money. Proud men. How do you think they're taking this shit? I don't think they're taking it very well at all. I mean, I think that this has been a recipe for normally gentle and proud men to emotionally lose control. I think that it's happened. Um, uh, I was reading a article. This cop was saying that he lived in a town. No, I wasn't reading an article. A friend of mine was telling me this story. He has a friend who's been a cop for like 30 years, working in the same town. He's a detective, and he has said that the suicides and the domestic violent rates, are through the roof. Like, he has never seen anything like this in his
Yeah.
30
I've been
years
hearing that.
experience on the police force. And he's just in one town,
Mm.
not a very big town. And it's off the charts. And nobody's talking about this and nobody's reporting it. And he's scared for everybody. because he sees it on the ground. So nobody's even talking about what this is doing to just the average person not being able to support their family. And I've said it before too. I mean, if this was 25 years ago, when my when my kids were small and I had that huge responsibility of taking care of them, I don't think that I would be faring. I would not, like, mentally, I don't think I'd be making it through this very well, because I think that I would it would be bad, because I'm one of those people that was used to taking care of my family, always has, you know, and mm, and so I can't even imagine what some guys are going through on this. It's it's not good.
Yeah, so I guess the assuming we get out the other side, and I'm not sure how long it would go on exactly, but I'd say in the greater plan for that, when we kind of wake up and decide, what is acceptable and not later on, it's there is actually one benefit to having it go on for a slightly longer rather than a shorter period of time, is that we'll get into, kind of like the World War II thing, the never again mentality. It's like, okay, we lived through this thing, we dealt with this thing, we we need to make sure that even if there is another pandemic or whatever, we need to handle it in a way that's gonna that it, the most people are
It,
going to be able to actually deal with it. Because I don't think this, there's laying aside the question of how legit the thing is, but there's a whole bunch of questions,
I think that it's going to.
and we have to figure out what we want to do going forward with certain
I think
issues
what
and
we're going
certain
to get into
certain things.
is it's going to come down to our financial system too, and our banking system, and we're going to have to decide what kind of a system we want to live under in the future and for our kids. I mean, do we really want our kids to be working under the same financial system that we're struggling under? I mean, wouldn't you want to? I mean, I would prefer it if my kids were able to work under a financial system that was fair and not one-sided.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that brings me to the other thing I was going to say. We have the right now we're auditing the vote. That's the most important thing, and then we'll audit COVID, audit all the stuff related to that and the claims made about it, and figure out what's true and what isn't. Um, then the audit the Fed. There was a big push, I think, in 2012 with Ron Paul or whatever. He was going to audit the Fed when he became president, and I'm not sure quite why that hasn't happened yet. I've got a few ideas about it, but I think that's going to be one of the next things going forward after we
Well,
find Obama's birth certificate.
yeah, that birth
And
certificate
we'll
doesn't
audit the
exist.
Fed. Actually, we'll audit the Fed, then we'll find out Obama's birth certificate. Although, yeah,
Oh, that's
that may
buried in a
become
shallow
moot at a
grave in
certain
Kenya.
point.
I had a
Hmm.
I had a vision the other night, which I thought was pretty cool, when I was thinking about the financial system. And I think in the future, or at least it was shown to me in the future, we are going to print our own money. Yeah. And I was like, well, how does
Oh,
that
really?
work? And
Hmm.
it works off the blockchain. Okay, say you're heading out the door, and say you might that you
Okay.
think you're going into a place where cell service is sketchy, or maybe you just don't even want to use your cell service, and you want to spend some money, and you want it, but you may not have your phone, or for whatever reason you don't have access to you're not going to have access to the blockchain. So you can take and you can print off your bills. And in the center of the QR code was a 5, a 10, or a 20, or a 100. So you knew what the denomination was, and it was surrounded by its QR code. You would hand that to somebody. They would scan the QR code. The QR code would automatically debit it from your blockchain account. And if there was change, then the person would print off another bill or a receipt, and on that receipt would be another QR code, and that would be your change that you could go use at another location somewhere else. Except the difference between what you handed the merchant and what the merchant handed back to you was what the merchant handed back to you had all the merchant information. But meanwhile, what you handed him was just a piece of paper with a QR code on it that he could scan. And that was it. Now you just spent anonymously. Kind of, sort of. People would, I mean, you'd still be tracking on your blockchain, but technically you didn't have to access it, and nobody really knows where you're at. Technically. So, I mean, it'd be no different than spending money. I mean, you can track somebody spending money, and you know where their location was by just tracking the bills. Same idea, except you're not, for people that get a little paranoid, but you're going to have that convenience of printing your own money or just having somebody scan it off your phone. So the convenience is going to work both ways. How crazy is that?
Yeah, that's right, because even if your phone, if you want to leave your phone, that's fine, but even if you don't have the cell service, and I think in the future it's going to be, what's the next, what's the first iPhone that's going to be satellite enabled? The iPhone 13, 14? I just wondered about that, because isn't that, I don't know, that'd be the new thing is satellite enabled consumer phones.
That's probably
$500 or whatever. No, I don't know.
That's not that far in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they already got most of the satellites up there. They're low orbit satellites to do the job. And Tesla being the one that's really at the forefront of it. And yeah, it's not going to surprise me to be able to access. Everybody's going to have satellite communication on their phone.
And then you said if there's no cell service for whatever reason, you can. Oh, hi, Mike. Mike's watching. You had. Let's see. It just occurred to me. You wouldn't even have to print the bills if you wanted to bring your phone. If you didn't want to bring your phone someplace, you'd print the bills, obviously. But if you didn't have service, that wouldn't be a problem necessarily, because you'd have the bills in the digital wallet on your phone. You could bring whichever one up you wanted to pay, and then you'd stick it out there like with a movie ticket, right? And then they'd scan it off the screen of your phone with their phone or whatever, and then the phones would do a thing over the short range radio, airdrop or whatever it is.
But the thing is that if we were printing our own money,
so yeah,
as we go, that eliminates inflation completely. And that has been the deep state's number one weapon. One of their greatest weapons against us is inflation. Yeah, they've used inflation. They've weaponized inflation just to, and there's only one purpose for doing that, and that is to eliminate the middle class. They want a two-class system. They want rich and they want poor. They want a master class and they want a servant class. These people are sick. They have no regard for the future, for time, or for universal law. They just don't care. All they care about is themselves. And well, God doesn't have much use for selfish personalities. That's why they're just regulated to oblivion, is because that's not how the universe works. The universe, the universe works through synchronicity, causalities.
It's the ultimate
Yeah,
contribute,
contribute or
or what
die.
is it? Contribute or die.
Yeah.
If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not, yeah, I guess we talked about this before somewhat. If you turn away from God long enough, if you turn away from the Creator for long enough, or consistently enough times, uh, it's going to, it's kind of a two-way street. It's going to stop supporting you, and after a certain point, I think you said the person or the entity that does that would at some point be unable to reach out for the
At some
Creator, and
point,
then it's
usually
done.
after insanity. Once the creature has reached the point of insanity,
Right.
then there is no return. And once once sanity has been reached, then there is the next step is oblivion. Because if you don't acknowledge the Creator, then the Creator cannot acknowledge you. And if the Creator does not acknowledge you, then you do
Right.
not exist. It's as simple as that. Because the universe, our universe exists because of Michael. If Michael did not come here and create this universe, we would not exist. Michael would not exist if the Father had not created him. So it just keeps going back. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just got to acknowledge that, that's the fact of reality, is that we do not exist without our Creator. And our Creator does not exist without his Father. And the Father.
And then corollary question, I guess. Thought experiment. Not that it could ever happen, but if for some reason Michael were to leave this universe and go somewhere else, would it? Like if you cut off the source of a river, the river dries up, right? If it stops producing, or if whatever, the spring stops, if the source of a river stops flowing, obviously everything downstream is going to have a bad
Michael
day.
will be more free to come and go in his own universe, uh, and travel to other universes to his brothers once we have reached light in life. Once we have reached light in life, then Michael is actually
Okay. Yeah.
free to travel the different universes. I mean, he could travel the different universes now, but that would mean abandoning his universe, and that ain't going to happen. But once the universe makes it to light and life, then we would be mostly self-sufficient. We'll probably be about 98%. About 98%
Yes.
self-sufficient, but
Mm.
we would still need our Creator. But it would also afford Michael more freedom to visit his brothers more often, like his brothers come and visit him. His brothers that are further along, whose universes are in light and life, they can leave and they can
Right.
come and visit their younger brother, and you know have offer advice or just hang out and chill. I don't know. They might, they have the equivalent of a joint, and sit back, relax, have a couple of tokes, and and talk about their universes. Why not? I mean, shit, we do it all the time. I mean, we sit back, we relax,
Right.
and we talk about our work, we talk about our family, we talk about the crazy show that was on the other night, and so I can't imagine that our creators would act any differently. I mean, after all, we are made in their image, aren't we? So some of our more positive habits, I'm sure that they do share, we'd have to, rightfully assume that they would share those positive traits with us, or we share them with them. So, I mean, why not? I mean, what you think? They just sit around and holy, holy, holy all day and sing? Oh my God. I mean, I don't know about you, but it would take me less than probably less than 100 years before I'd just be wanting to slit my wrists. But I wouldn't be able to. So that's hell.
There's probably more. There's probably more extracurricular activities up there than there are here. Even it's. I'm not sure why people think that the
Mm.
upper levels are more limited than
Oh,
this one.
we talked about it before. The most fit.
There's stuff
Oh,
to do there that
I
we
can't
couldn't
even
even
imagine it.
imagine.
I mean, it's like one of the favorite things that the beings in the real, they love playing swords. I can't even stress that enough. They really, really love playing swords. And I mean, they act out, different battles that have happened here on the planet. Not like the horrific ones, but the traditional ones, the primitive ones, where swords and shields, spears and rocks. They love acting out those dramas, and for them, it's fun. It's LARPing essentially. It's let's go play human for a while. And yeah, no, they love swords, and they love practicing their skills, and they are really really good with sword, and they also know how their bodies move. Uh, look at uh, Look at what the fallen were teaching humans back in the day about um, kundalini, about chakras, and about how to move the body to allow for best blood flow and everything like that. They know how the body works. Um, Especially the material sons and material daughters, because they've got bodies like ours. They look like all the different species of our universe, but the ones that are humanoid, they understand how their body works, just like the ones that are non-humanoid. They know how their bodies work, and yeah, and they taught us quite a bit. Just go read some of this stuff in that's in the Hindu texts about how to move the body for best blood circulation. Um, what else? Uh,
The martial arts, did they
yes,
teach us
that's
the
what.
martial arts like kung fu
Yes,
and
that's
stuff?
where all the. This is
Yeah,
where
I
they
wonder if
love
they did.
swordplay. They learned how to do all of that in the real.
Hmm.
Like they play these games, and so when they came here, they still taught. See, that's the thing people don't understand. When the Luciferian rebellion broke out, everybody's like, oh, they think demons and all these hideous creatures. No, not at all. When when the fallen first came to Earth, they in the real they were being trained as teachers and as mentors for humans. So when they came to Earth after the during the rebellion time, they they had no intention of treating us horrible. There was no intention of that. Lucifer said that he was the greatest friend to humanity, because humans were important, even like to the angels. Like Lucifer would not have been able to convince as many angels to rebel as he did if he did not proclaim to be a friend of humans. Because you got to remember, they love us. I mean, they love
Right.
teaching us, they love interacting with us, and that is one of the reasons why the material children, most of them, were the ones that rebelled. It's because they wanted to come here and interact with us. But Michael was like, oh, no, 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 no. You got to wait. You got to wait till your turn or your time. And they did not want to wait. They thought Michael was being unfair in making them wait so long. But I don't know. I guess when you have an eternity, I guess it does seem like a long time. And so they wanted to shortcut and get to the planets, and so that's what Lucifer promised them, like any good politician would do. And so when they came here with the best intentions to teach us, because they felt that Michael's plan of this million-year evolutionary track, they thought it was unfair. It's like, look how many humans died during that million-year evolution. It's like, so many wasted souls, not understanding that Michael is looking at the bigger picture. He's looking at a universe moving into light and life. And so certain things have to happen in order to do that. And so when they came here, they decided that they wanted to teach us everything at once. And we talked about this before, like they didn't quite understand morphogenic fields, not the way Michael does. And so by teaching us everything all at once, they ended up having to reteach us every generation. And at first, when they got here, they taught us everything. Like everything, like shit they should never have told us. But they taught us everything. I mean, basically it was like, basically it was like giving firecrackers to a baby and a book of matches and teaching the kid how to use them without any thought to the safety protocols involved. And that's exactly what they did. And like I said, they taught us everything. They taught us about chemistry. They taught us about metallurgy. They directed us in how to build the buildings. We didn't build the buildings on our own. They directed us. They were gods. They were leaders of the city, and they all had their little city state, because there were so many of them that they basically claimed chunks of land for themselves. And we know some of these names in history: Enlil, Enki, Atlantis, Zeus, and not so much Zeus. But all of these gods that we read about in our history, these were simply governors, essentially, of cities. And it was like, they had a whole political hierarchy. So they're teaching us all this stuff, and then somewhere along the line, they realized that humans were not using the information that they were giving with the best intentions. So after a while, they stopped teaching humans everything, and then they only started teaching them, certain humans everything. And in about this time, they were also getting frustrated with humans, because they're teaching us every generation. It's like, we're not learning. It's because they weren't developing the morphogenic field. They were just teaching humans. And so that frustration ended up turning into something ugly. And that's when, they started killing lots of people. Before that, they were only killing like certain select people that they were like, just almost animals. And this was, so that they would be able to sustain themselves. But in the meantime, they were always looking for a workaround, so that but then after about 50,000 years, they stopped looking for the workaround, and then they just started going full on. And that's where we end up with the blood sacrifices and all these secret religious cults that come up through. And they were building power plants, and they were sucking all the energy from the earth. And then that had its own set of consequences. They were using the earth like they were using the earth like they would use a planet in the real, except you can't do that shit here. Two different universes. And so that's why the planet ended up cracking and splitting and broke open and became larger. And plus other things happened in the solar system too that kind of helped that along, like Tiamat blowing up. And then again, we see Michael waiting to the last possible second. Because while all of this was going on Earth, Adam and Eve are on Jerusalem, and they want to come to Earth. And they think to themselves that they could stop what the fallen are doing, on their own. But they also knew that Van was here too, so they thought they could use Van to help them with that as well. And Van had the tree of life. And so they had their own ideas, but Michael was like, no, chill out, just relax. And Adam and Eve, not being rebellious, chilled out. And the reason why Michael, I see it, and I'm surprised they didn't see it, but maybe they had a little bit of ego there. But if they had came to the planet and started their mission before 50,000 years ago, they would have been overwhelmed by the fallen. Whether they knew it or not, they would have been, because there was more of them than them. And so Michael was wise not to let them come to the planet. And besides that, I think Michael knew what was going to happen. It's like anything else. I mean, I see people I see people do stupid shit with their car engines over the years, and I'm just like, don't do that. You're going to blow up the engine. Oh, no, she can take it. Rum, 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 ping, boom, done. And it's just like, told you. I'm pretty sure that was the position that Michael was in. It's like, boys, you need to stop sucking the energy from this planet. You're going to kill it, and it's not going to be good. And they're like, we don't care, or no, we won't, or they were arrogant anyways. And what did they do? They ended up causing this huge catastrophe, and everything busted apart. We can read about it in the Sumerian texts. The Sumerian texts clearly state that they had left the earth during the time of this cataclysm because they knew it was a bad one, and it just about destroyed the earth. So after that, most of the fallen had died during that catastrophe. Only a select few had escaped. That's because they were all selfish personalities, and they weren't looking to help each other. They were only looking to save their own skin. And so, they basically, if they did help anybody, it was only to serve their own self-interests. And so but not as many survived that catastrophe. 5,000 years later, that's when Adam and Eve were finally allowed to come to Earth, because the fallen were completely wiped away. There were some remnants, but not enough to interfere with there was a better chance that they would have success after the catastrophe than they did before. And we see that they weren't 100% successful, because if they were, we wouldn't be dealing with this shitstorm that we're dealing with now. And so, that was the first catastrophe.
They were more successful than they would have been before. I think it mentions that in the Urantia book that they weren't 100% successful. They actually defaulted in their mission. They were able to create enough bloodline that it did significantly advance. It did significantly assist the bloodlines of the world. Many of the bloodlines of the world are
and here's the
have that in them now.
And here's the interesting thing. When you look at the genetics, about 80% of the people, maybe closer to 90% of the people on this planet can trace their roots straight back to Adam. We can do this genetically. Goes back to a man, and we call this man Adam. Okay? Whether it's the real Adam or not, scientifically, we're not sure. We don't know. Intuitively, I think we all know. And so that is a great deal. But then there's this other little branch that doesn't come from Adam, but it comes from a descendant of Adam, and it goes over, and that branch takes in most of Africa, the people in Africa. And then on the genetic, there's this other line, and it goes past Adam to somewhere in the past. And scientists don't quite know. They know that it can be traced back to a guy like that might have lived like 1,000,000 years ago. Andidates. And there's only like maybe 2 or 3% of the population on the planet that can trace their DNA back to that point. The rest of us can only trace our DNA back about 50,000 years to this man named Adam. Interesting. So there's science lining up with the Urantia book. How messed up is that? That's not the first time I've seen that happen with the Urantia book, but it's interesting. And yeah, so so Adam and Eve were able to substantially influence this planet, and so that we can all, like 90% of us, maybe more, can say that we all come from Adam, and we can say that.
Okay. So we have quite a lot of potential, more potential than we would have otherwise. Oh, and I should tell you, it's getting up to be about 10 minutes to 4. So
Okay.
maybe we want to start wrapping it up, or kind of we'll start looking in that direction. I'm not sure what else you've got for us, but I'm just letting you know, I guess, what time it is.
Does any other questions pop up?
No, I'm just no, nobody else has asked a question. I've got some folks folk watching. I said Tim, Sonia. I don't know if you know Sonia. We got Mike, my friend Mike, the fellow I told you about before, I think. Hi, Mike. Don't know if he's still on, but anyway, he started watching, and yeah, nobody else has asked a question. I think we've done pretty well explaining what we've been talking about, but yeah, it'll be interesting times ahead, and I guess just don't take stuff too seriously. I guess just kind of pay attention to what's going on. Oh, I got something. Remember the one we did before November 3rd, whenever it was, like October the 3rd, on Halloween. I told you, driving home, I had a conversation, or what seemed to be a conversation, with Michael, and I said, well, what should I do? And he said, if you were me, or if you were you. And I said, well, let's say if I were me as a mortal. And he said, well, or something. And I said, well, if I were you, I have some ideas of what I could do, but if I were me, all I could do is pray. And he said, well, get started. So I started repeating God Bless America over and over again, until I said I thought I would do that until the election, and then until we had some kind of result. And now I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to continue repeating God Bless America until I have some reason not to. So I'm just continuously saying that in my mind, the God Bless America, and then the prayer I started out with, that goes from the local up to the world level. I say that every night, and I just say God Bless America over.
I find myself doing something similar, except I'm looking at the planet as a whole. as but no, you are correct. It
Yeah.
at this point in time, America is the most important country on the planet right now. Because if America falls, the rest of the planet
And I'm
is
a
done. Because
I'm an American
but
citizen, so I've
yeah,
got a
I
little
mean
bit of
all the
bias there. But saying God bless America instead of the world. But yeah, no, I'm thinking of the world as well. But
yeah,
the God bless America thing,
because without
certainly not
America,
nothing. I don't think
what
so.
chance do honest leaders in other countries have? What chance do they have? I mean, it's been it's for good or ill, it has been America that has defended democracy throughout the world for the last 80 years. Regardless of how you feel about war, uh, or how you feel about what America has done in the world, without America, democracy would have died a long, long time ago. And when you really look at things, I mean, America didn't start turning into the military industrial complex until the Vietnam War. And that is when bad
Right.
actors discovered a way to make huge amounts of money. And being in Vietnam afforded a lot of opportunity for bad actors. I mean, from human trafficking to drug smuggling is like that whole. I mean, Vietnam was perfectly situated to just to be the railroad for drugs and human trafficking. It was perfectly situated to because it had.
Yeah, I would have figured, yeah, something like that. About in the late 50s, early mid 60s was when it started ramping up. I mean, they had the Eisenhower knew about it after World War II. He had he warned us about the military-industrial complex and stuff. But yeah, from say the 60s on up, that's looking back at history. That seems, and you were asking if there were any questions. Mike here just asked one. He said, how do you know your past that far back? LOL. Most can trace ancestor back to 16th to 18th century. Pretty hard further back. Curious if blood type can be indicative to race for further back. So he's wondering how you
But
trace what we were talking about.
part of it was done through the Genome Project back in the late 90s. And they were very easily able to trace our genome sequence back about 200 to 250,000 years. And then other genetic tests can show it can only show the father's side. Like you can take a piece of DNA and it could be like taken off of a 1,000-year-old skeleton. It's dry and it's quite deteriorated, but we can still easily see the father's line in the DNA. Now, seeing the mother's side is a little bit more difficult. You need a good piece of DNA. Usually a bone marrow is a good candidate. Teeth are even better, and through that you can trace the mitochondrial DNA. But it is very easy for scientists to trace the paternal DNA back to Adam. And
And he has a follow up question. If alien ancestor or such exists, would it be indicative to B, or a blood type, as various parts world like southern Russia had blood type for thousands of years till we traveled more
Okay.
than
Yeah.
mixed. Yeah,
Now,
so
when humans divided up into the colored races, each colored race had its own blood type, and but that was like 500,000 years ago when the colored races showed up on the planet. We have had tons and tons of time to interbreed back and forth racially, and to mix the blood types enough to that there are very few pure, like pure bloods left on the planet, if you want to use that term. Um, but most of us now are a mix, and that's where some of the blood types come too, is that a mixing and a blending of blood types, and then they begin to complement each other. Now, that being said, there is one particular blood type on the planet that has not blended well with the other blood types, and that is type ORH negative. It does not blend well with the other blood types. Nobody knows why, and nobody understands why. But for some odd reason, it just happens that way. So, for example, a father, so you have a male and female. The male is type A and the female is type ORH negative. Now, if the female becomes pregnant with a type A blood type, the father's blood type, that child will not survive in the womb. The mother's body will kill it. But if the child is ORH negative, like the mother, then the mother will carry through and she'll have a very healthy child. Healthier babies than other blood types might give out. And that is a anomaly amongst Rh negatives. And many conquerors came into their land and were always trying to breed out the ORH negative, but they could never do it because the babies would die in the womb and the mother would only give birth to ORH negative. Nowadays, a mother who is ORH negative can get certain shots and she'd be able to carry the baby through full term. And that has its own set of consequences that the child gets to live with growing up. But that's a whole other can of worms that I'm not going to go into because I'm not a doctor. And
okay, I'm going to address the alien ancestor part of my
Adam and
question,
Eve
and then I think
were aliens.
we can wrap it up.
When you really think about it.
Yeah, so the life arose on the planet in, let's see, there were entities called life carriers which seeded the planet with things that became amoebas and then worked their way up through evolution until eventually we had what became the first humans. So we weren't dropped off here in our current form or really any proto-human form. That evolved. And then when we were up to a point where we would be able to, I guess, hybridize with whatever Adam and Eve were, or their children. I guess they created a race of descendants that were eventually supposed to mix with the inhabitants of the planet that had evolved. And on normal planets, there would have been far more of them, and then it would have kind of all become one race. But on this one, there were certain difficulties, and we didn't get as much of that DNA. So anyway, I guess the alien ancestor was Adam and Eve coming to the planet and creating their line that mixed with our line.
That would be correct.
Is that
but the thing is too is that the material children that came, the fallen that came, they did their own bit of meddling in our DNA as well. Just go read in the Sumerian text. Enki was a big part of that. He was a material child. He was part of the fallen that came to this planet. Like the whole Anunnaki thing, just think material children, material sons and material daughters. They were very much like Adam and Eve, except they didn't have any mission from their creator. They just came here of their own volition and pretty much did whatever the hell they wanted. And Enki was a big part of playing with our DNA. He wasn't as successful as what Zachariah Stitchin likes to say. There's nothing left of Enki's work on the planet. All of his work was destroyed 50,000 years ago. And what he did create were basically mules. Were basically humans with no reproductive ability. He could never get past the mule part. He was creating like humans, big, beautiful, hard, muscles like steel, but they could not pass their genetics on. They were always sterile, and this frustrated the shit out of Enki for a very long time. And he tried all kinds of different things. He used females as axolotl tanks, if you're familiar with the Dune books, and all kinds of experiments with humans. And plus, they wanted the gold. The gold was a mineral that they could use in making the bodies that they needed for the fallen. So they wanted lots and lots of gold so that they could make more and more bodies. They had facilities all over the planet. All of these facilities are busted and broken down. After the first catastrophe, they rebuilt those facilities in Egypt to make bodies for themselves, and also to rejuvenate the bodies that they were using. But that little facility got destroyed in the second cataclysm, which wasn't nearly as bad as the first. We call that the Younger Dryas. And that reset humanity all over again. This is why contemporary archaeology can easily trace our history back about 5,000 years, because there was this time after the Younger Dryas period that there was basically the Dark Ages, and then came out of the Dark Ages, and the survivors settled in Egypt and built everything back up again. And this is where we start getting the stories.
Yeah, we'll have to start with that in our next thing, because Mike's got questions that lead into it. Yeah, so it's just wondering, the stone monuments in Egypt, are they built by
their
the fallen,
grandchildren or their great grandchildren?
Kind of?
The grandchildren of the fallen built Egypt.
Yeah.
And so they didn't cut the stone out of the ground. They actually crushed it up and made a concrete slurry. You got to remember, these guys are a hell of a lot smarter than
Mike,
us, they knew chemistry, and they knew how to mix elements together to create that concrete. And there's already been studies done where a guy did cut into some rock in Egypt, and he found shells in the center of it. And plus he found bits of grass and in the center of it. And it's like, well, how did that get there? The only explanation, and dust from the desert.
Things like that, yeah. I can chat with, no, go ahead. Dust from the desert inside the middle of a rock, yeah. So I can chat with Mike and catch him up on all this stuff, and we'll Mike, we do this. Our schedule is tentatively Sundays at 2:00. Anyway, we'll let you know when we're going to do this again. So anyway, yeah, so lots of interesting discussion. And what did you have anything for next time that you wanted to discuss specifically? Because I'm writing down a couple of subjects, and then if you have anything you want to talk about, then we can write it down and
Well,
revisit it then, or see what you
I
want to do.
get, I don't know. We always seem to just kind of go with the flow. It's
Yeah, yeah, I know.
we always seem to come up with
Everything.
something.
Yeah, we come
I
up
mean,
with
I know
something
that usually end up
quite
just
easily.
starting with what's been going on in the week and then how that relates to everything else. And especially about like how we're
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah, and then if we have viewer questions, yeah, and then what we come up with, think of things like that, and then if we have viewer questions, that kind of gives us something to go on as well. So yeah, I think this is the most viewer interaction we've had
That's good. Because the
on
thing
one of
is,
our
it
shows.
is
That's
helpful
awesome.
to have questions
Or it's in
because
first place.
there's so much rattling around up in here that to sort it all out. And then also once I get into that mode, I also can go right back into the past and see it happening. Like I could tell you stories like personal stories of the
Okay.
individuals involved in some of these events and some of the things that they had to do. Like I seen most of what Noah had to do and what he went through after his parents defaulted on their mission. Noah was very upset, and he was upset with his parents. He was angry with the fallen, and at some point he decided to do something about it. And that's when he got a bunch of his brothers and a band of humans that were pissed off too, by the way. A lot of humans at that time were pissed off with what the fallen had done to Adam and Eve. and and one of the first missions that Noah and his army went on was a mission to steal weapons. And they got the weapons. And the thing was that these were weapons that the fallen had made, and humans could not use these weapons. Only the fallen and the Adamites could use these weapons. And since Noah was an Adamite, and so were his brothers, they stole these weapons, and then they were able to use these weapons to devastate the fallen and their cities. And basically, what Noah did, and they did call it the flood, because it was because when Noah's army came across the hill, it was like a wave, like nothing anybody had ever witnessed before. There was a lot of pissed off people. I was like, you think that's going to be a crowd in Washington on January 9th? I mean, the amount of people that were with Noah would dwarf the gathering in Washington. That's how many pissed off humans were back then. And they knew whose fault it was, and they utterly destroyed the fallen in their area. This is why you see so many empty cities and so many destroyed cities in and around the Mediterranean area, is because Noah had no mercy for these people at all and utterly destroyed them, sometimes in a night. His army would descend upon a city and they would destroy everything. They would raze it to the ground, just like that. There was no quarter as far as Noah was concerned. Uh, and yeah, and eventually they were all gone. And a lot of those stories of the type of weapons that Noah and his brother had and what the fallen had, you can read about them in the myths and legends in the Vedas in Greece, in Rome. They describe Zeus's lightning bolt. Zeus is actually a variation. Yeah, Zeus is actually a
Flaming
variation
swords.
on Noah. it was based on Noah, and just Hollywoodized, I guess, is what we would use for a modern term. And plus, everything got mixed and matched over the years. The the Hebrews, the Jews, their history is a good example of how they took stories from this culture and twisted them and made them their own, or blended them somehow with their stories. And they had good stories to begin with. They didn't have to do that. I mean, they had a beautiful story with how Abraham interacted with Melchizedek, and all of the stuff that Abraham's descendants did. There was no need for them to like glorify any of this stuff. But most of the stuff that took place before Abraham was appropriated from other cultures. A lot of the stuff after the stories of Abraham is a mix of Babylonian uh, myth and Hebrew history, because they wanted to kind of sensationalize it. But if you had a chance to actually read the originals, you would wonder why they felt the need to do that, because there was still enough patriotic pride in those stories that there was no need to say, uh, all this other stuff that they now have to justify every war and to justify their position in the world. There was no need of that. They would have done just fine as a proud and strong people. But by believing that they were the chosen people, well, shit, they got a 5,000 year history out of that piece of propaganda when you think about it.
Yeah, I guess they did. All right, I think we'll wind it down on that note, I guess. So we'll all right, we'll see you next time, and thank you, Krow, again, always for joining us and or joining, and thanks to everybody who watched, asked questions, participated.
Yes, thanks for
We'll
watching.
see
Thanks
you
for the
next time.
question.